Hi, second graders. Today in reading, we are going to work some more on the main idea and details of a nonfiction passage. Remember, nonfiction means true information, facts about a topic. So we're going to look at a passage and complete another web organizing our thoughts about the main idea and details. So listen, use your thinking voice as I'm reading, and help me finish this activity up. Let me get ready here. All right. So in front of you, you are seeing another web. And what I like about this one is that I'm going to make it just a little larger for you. There we go. Is that it gives us some hints about what we should be thinking. Because when we read anything, what was the story about? Remember, the main idea is the most important detail, the most important thing the author wants us to know. So, how can you find the main idea? So, what is the text mostly about? Looking at the title and headings. So, anytime you see a title or some headings, that's a helpful hint of what the main idea might be about. Look at any pictures. Reread the first and last sentence. So if you're reading just a passage or a paragraph, sometimes the first or the last sentence will give you a hint of what the main idea is. And then look for clue words. What are used more than once? So maybe you hear a word being repeated over and over. That's going to help us with the main idea, what the story or passage is mostly about. And then remember, the details are important because that gives us more information. It makes it a little more interesting. So the detail can explain something about the main idea. It can describe something more about the main idea, and it can just tell more about the main idea. So the details give us more information. Another web I wanted to show you that I thought was kind of interesting was to think of it like an ice cream cone. If someone just gave you an ice cream cone plain, you might not be very excited. But when they start adding these scoops into your ice cream cone, it makes your ice cream or your dessert way better, more interesting. So that's how you can also think of the main idea. If it was by itself, it wouldn't be very interesting or very tasty. It'd be a little maybe boring. And then as we add in those details, it becomes more interesting. So let's look at a passage today, and it's called Beavers. So we said we should look at possibly the title. There's a lot I could think about with beavers. I could think about where they live, how their jobs they do. I can think about how maybe big they get. Do they live in groups? So to me, this is just a topic. I don't think that's helping me much with the main idea, but it sure is getting my brain, my thinking voice ready for this passage. So I'm going to read, and you can follow along. You can read with me or listen, but you've got your thinking voice going. The beaver is not only a great lumberjack, it can also swim quite well. Its special fur helps to keep it warm. Its hind legs work like fins. Its tail is used as a rudder to steer through the water. Okay, I'm visualizing all that in my mind about the fur keeping it warm in the water and the legs working like fins. Let's keep going. The beaver can hold its breath underwater for 15 minutes, and its special eyelids are transparent, so they work like goggles. I bet some of you have goggles or a mask on when you might swim. And when you have your goggles on, you can open your eyes and see. So I'm thinking that when they have their eyes closed, their eyelids are like their goggles, so they can see underwater. Beavers don't live in the water, but but it is a very good swimmer and can stay underwater for a long time. Well, if I think back to this first web that I was showing you, I was trying to think about maybe the title or headings. I don't see any headings. When we read our astronaut story, we sure had some headings to give our brains that time to get ready to think about what that was going to be about. I saw a title. Let's reread that first or last sentence and maybe some words that we see more than once. So the first sentence says, the beaver is not only a great lumberjack, it can also swim quite well. Okay, let's read the last one. Beaver don't live in the water, but it is a very good swimmer and can stay underwater for a long time. Wow, I hear something in common. I hear swimming and water. I hear swimming here. It's a good swimmer. It's a good swimmer. We talk about swimming a lot. So I think this passage is mostly about the main idea about how beavers can swim quite well or how beavers are very good swimmers. So I will write that. Beavers are good swimmers. I put that a little bit in my own words, but you could always copy it right from the passage. So now, if I just said that, that's not very interesting. It's going back to this ice cream cone, where if someone just gave you this cone, the main idea, you're like, okay, can you add some details? Can you add some ice cream to make it a little more interesting? So let's add some details. What gives us more information about how beavers are good swimmers? Do you remember a fact or something that was interesting to you? I remember it mentioning that the hind legs work like fins. And I know fins are needed for any creature that's in the water. So I'm going to jot this down. Remember, when I'm jotting it down, it doesn't have to be in a complete sentence. So I'll just write hind legs work, like fins. Work like fins. I'll make that look more like an L. What else are the details that tell us more about how they're good swimmers? It's almost like if I said to you, beavers are good swimmers, and you said to me, prove it, Mrs. Richard. Can you give us some evidence? Well, I can say, hind legs work like fins. That is some evidence. It's a detail. Oh, I just saw another detail, some more evidence that proves they're good swimmers. The beaver can hold its breath underwater for 15 minutes. I'm going to jot that down. Hold breath, and if I'm not sure how to spell it, I can look right back up in my passage. Hold breath underwater, because that's part of being a good swimmer is when you're holding your breath underwater for 15 minutes. And I need one more detail. Oh, I remember what was interesting. We talked about the goggles. We talked about how some kids might wear goggles when they're swimming, and they have special eyelids that work like goggles so they can see underwater. Once again, I'm not concerned right now about putting it in a complete sentence. I just want to jot down these pieces of details, these extra facts that support the main idea. Special eyelids work like goggles, and that tells my brain that then they can see underwater. So I can just kind of summarize it. Beavers are good swimmers. Prove it. Here I go. Their hind legs work like fins. They can hold their breath underwater for 15 minutes, and they have special eyelids that work like goggles. Let me add an S to that, work like goggles. So boys and girls, keep this in mind when you're reading nonfiction. See if you can find the main idea and then find some details that make that main idea more interesting or give us more facts about that main idea. Thanks for listening.